Friends and family celebrated the life of Britanee Drexel in her home state of New York just weeks after her remains were found in Georgetown County, 13 years after she disappeared while on spring break in Myrtle Beach in 2009. Stephanie Dupree has more.
I get to love you. I get to love
Those close to Britanee, her mom, dad, and siblings broke down in tears, knowing their little girl has found peace.
You guys do have kids. The best thing I could have done is protect these guys. Sorry. I got this.
Seats were filled inside the father's house on Paul Road in Chilai. You can see flowers, balloons, and pictures of Britanee. Her younger sister, holding Britanee close to her heart, relives her favorite memories. Most of them were on the soccer field, but others were only moments sisters could share.
13 years later, and I'm wearing your remains around my neck. We loved doing hair and makeup together. You'd get mad at me for taking your shoes because we were so close in sizes, me, you, and Mom, or your hair straightener or blow dryer because I could not find mine.
Drexel was last seen on April 25, 2009, while she was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina on spring break. She was missing for 13 years before her remains were found in a gated private drive on the outskirts of Georgetown, South Carolina, about 33 miles away from where she was last seen.
Hey, what's up, guys? Dr. Crocco. Welcome back to the Spooky Show, episode 1 of season 2. Hope everybody is doing great. Tonight's case is going to be the very horrific, just terrible case of Britanee Drexel. Good way to start off the show right here. Give me 1 second here. Now I was gonna come on earlier, but I was trying to wait for some artwork to come in, but it won't be ready till next week's episode. And then I was trying to just fix a few kinks out before I went live. But this case is very important to me. This case happened very near where I live. Well, the person that's involved lived near where I lived. But the case happened in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. But we will get into the details here. Let me just get myself on camera here. Okay. Looks like it's gotta be one of those nights, huh? I apologize, guys. I'm just trying to get the camera working here. Or I just will do it without the camera. Sorry about that. About 12 people here. Let me give this one more try. OBS does the weirdest stuff sometimes. Like, I've never had to reset this thing before, but tonight there might not be a camera. Alright. So, we'll go without the camera. Alright. Ooh, is Britanee still a cold case? Oh, we're gonna get into this. It is not a cold case. I'm just gonna re-record here really quick. I'm just gonna stop that recording so that's not part of the video. And act like we just started the stream. Hey, what's up, everybody? Dr. Crocco. Welcome back to Season 2 of Dr. Crocco's Spooky Show, Episode 1. And we're going to talk about the mysterious and horrific case of Britanee Drexel. Now, this case is near and dear to me because, well, she disappeared in 2009. She disappeared originally from Rochester, New York, which I live right on the outskirts of, but it was learned after that she actually disappeared from somewhere else, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So, the disappearance of Britanee Drexel, 17-year-old spring breaker who vanished while partying in Myrtle Beach. Now, this has to be every parent's, if there's parents in the audience right now, this has to be every parent's possible worst nightmare. Not just that your daughter has disappeared, but she had been going through some just teen issues, anxiety, and she really wanted to get away with her friends for spring break, and she really was asking her parents incessantly. Her mother and father were divorced just recently, so that was causing her problems. And she just wanted to get away, and she asked her mother if she could go to spring break with her friends. And her mom just didn't feel it was safe. She didn't like the age group. Britanee was the youngest, a young girl, for her age, an attractive girl going with 18, 19-year-old guys down to Myrtle Beach. The mom just did not want this to happen. So the maddening disappearance in 2009 left her friends, her family, even investigators in shock. In April of that year, Britanee had secretly left New York for a spring break trip to Myrtle Beach, and that's when she vanished about 2 days into that trip. She originally told her mom, well, since I can't go, and since I can't, go to Myrtle Beach, would it be okay if I slept over a friend's house or we had our own spring break here? And her mother compromised and said, you know what, that's okay. Well, Britanee decided she's going to hop in a car and go to Myrtle Beach. So I just couldn't imagine the phone call the mom got saying your daughter is missing in Myrtle Beach right now. And the parents thinking, well, I told her she couldn't go, but I guess she went. So she was a cheerful teen most of her life, excelled at soccer. Drexel reportedly had grown increasingly depressed, and this was many factors, just that age of being 17. The two parents were embroiled in this divorce, and Britanee was just eager to get out of the house. Here's a picture of Britanee Drexel for anybody that is not aware of her. Now, you might notice stunning blue eyes. This is actually, she had a medical condition when she was younger that really affected her eyes, and she chose to wear these special contacts that really brightened her face up and her eyes up. But this is what she was known for. Everybody would comment on her eyes constantly. Now, though her parents permitted her to spring break at Lake Ontario with a friend, she instead drove to Myrtle Beach, where, in a turn of events, Drexel vanished outside of her friend's hotel on April 25th. Then in 2016, the case took an even more disturbing turn when an inmate asserted that she had been abducted and brutally killed that night, and investigators now consider her case a harrowing homicide. So we're going to get into this brutal killing. This came from an inmate, an informant, and this really put a monkey wrench in the whole case and falsely accused somebody while the real perpetrator was still out there, and put this guy's life through hell, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Born in 91 in Rochester, New York, Britanee Drexel had a pleasant childhood. Despite her biological father leaving the family in her infancy, her mother, Dawn, married a man named Chad Drexel, who adopted and raised her as his own. Though Drexel had been born with a rare eye disorder that required several surgeries and actually left her blind in one eye, she wore contact lenses to keep the right pupil from wandering and aspired to be a cosmologist and a model as a result. She also played soccer, a lot of different things. So here's another picture of her without the blonde. Drexel was missing for almost a decade before they even got a break in the case. Her mother says she was full of life. Britanee's heart was soccer. She was small, but boy could she run fast, lightning speed down the field, and she was known as a great soccer player, a great teammate, and a great friend. Now, the 17-year-old at Gates Tri High School, which is about 20 minutes from where I live right now, was just in a slump that year. After her parents separated in 2008, Drexel's passion notably lessened and her grades began to slip. This only compounded when her parents initiated divorce proceedings in 2009. So if you want to call this depression, you want to call this anxiety, it sounds like just a teen that was going through normal teenager things and dealing with them. There was no chance of like she was suicidal or any of these kind of things that people throw out there. Because when a case like this happens and there's no answers, people grasp onto anything just to find closure. But there was never any suicidal tendencies in her. She was abducted. Now, Drexel proposed that she spend spring break with her friends and boyfriend, John Greco, in Myrtle Beach. Her mother swiftly forbade this, and Drexel kind of faintly, accepted it and asked if she could spend her vacation at a friend's house on Lake Ontario. Instead, with a green light for this, she drove off on April 22nd. She arrived at Myrtle Beach on the 23rd and called her mom from the Bar Harbor Hotel where she and friends were staying. The following night, she went out clubbing with fellow Rochester friend Peter Borowitz. Dawn Drexel, I didn't even know that her daughter's boyfriend hadn't even gone. So the mom thought she was going to be with her boyfriend, but the boyfriend did not even go on this trip. She did not know that she was leaving to Myrtle Beach. She did not know that the boyfriend was not in attendance with her, and this caused a lot of concern. And this was even before she disappeared. Someone said, looks like a typical 2000s girl. Beholder says, teenage depression. They start to come to the realization of how cruel and BS life can be. Yeah, and everybody knows when you're a teenager, you just go through shit. You just, you can't really explain it to the parents. You can't explain it to anybody but your friends and, people close to you. Now, this is surveillance footage from this Blue Water Resort on April 25th, 2009. Now, publicly, this is one of the last images that you're going to see of her. I'm sure privately they have other surveillance that was never released. Around 8 p.m. on the night of the 25th, Drexel made a mile-long walk to the Blue Water Resort where her friend Brosowitz was staying. She had made this walk at least once before on the trip and had been in constant communication with her boyfriend throughout the day. And this is a very important part of it. She was texting her boyfriend how a girl would text her boyfriend all day, every day. If there was a lapse in texting, the boyfriend would get worried. Same thing, both ways. Now, while Blue Water Resort security camera showed Drexel arriving there safely, she then left the premises 10 minutes later. Brosowitz was the last person to see her alive. While still replying to her boyfriend's text messages after departing, all communications from Drexel's phone then suddenly stopped at 9:15. So you have to think, she shows up at 8 p.m. or she leaves at 8 p.m. to go to this place. It's about an hour walk. She gets there around 9 o'clock. She leaves, she's texting her boyfriend, and the texts stop at 9:15. So you have a pretty good timeline of when the abduction could have happened. Most likely she walked out of that hotel and was coerced, forcibly grabbed, many different scenarios, but it's believed the abduction happened very quickly, and there's other reasons to believe that she had encountered the person that abducted her before, and kind of a grooming technique that this guy would use. I do not want to give away the killer and abductor as of yet, but he had a grooming technique where he would spot people like this, or he would just do insane, really disgusting stuff. When I show you his record, you guys will be just disgusted. But he would do a grooming technique on someone that was like a tourist and say, oh, this is a bad neighborhood, you don't want to be around here, and act like he was just being a helpful person. And then on another date, he would come up to them again, use the same routine, and then eventually he would say, this is a very bad area, let me give you a ride out of here. And that would be his key to abducting these young girls. Beholder says, I got the feeling that she was being followed as soon as she entered the hotel. Most likely she was being followed from the moment this guy laid eyes on her. Now the frantic investigation begins. Concerned by her silence, the boyfriend texted Drexel that he would tell her mother about the Myrtle Beach trip. Like, he's so worried. He's like, all right, if she doesn't respond to this text, I know something's up. Like, he's like, I'm going to tell your mom you're in Myrtle Beach. He did just that before asking a friend, a U.S. Marine stationed in North Carolina, to drive south and file a missing persons report with the Myrtle Beach Police Department. It was now April 26th. Quote, I think somebody saw her walking and offered her a ride, and she got in the car with the wrong person, Greco later theorized. That's a pretty good theory. In the media aftermath of Drexel's disappearance, some of her friends stay behind for an extra day to help find her before returning to Rochester. Local police combed Myrtle Beach, followed up leads, and she was spotted at a bus stop and a convenience store, but came up empty-handed. And when you put pictures out like this and you tell people to be on the lookout, 99% of the time you get false sightings, but it's very important in missing person cases to immediately alert anybody you can, immediately make flyers, immediately have pictures to put out. There's a great site called Name Us, N-A-M-E-US, Name Us. Now, she wouldn't qualify for that because we know her name. But there's many different databases. You can put in the people's information, tattoos, height, things that normally wouldn't go on a missing persons poster, just to see if anybody, if they see it and it clicks, they come across this person. Now we're talking about someone that was 5 foot, 100 pounds. So as far as someone abducting her, yeah. Someone said Myrtle Beach. I bet Jamie Deluxe knows this story. This story was huge. Like, this wasn't just like a local thing. This was like a nationwide, like Nancy Grace every night. This was a big, big deal. Now, investigators now believe that Drexel was murdered shortly after being abducted. Obviously, you work on the premise that she's alive until you can find her. But now looking back, they realize she was probably murdered very quickly. Though her phone records showed that her last signal came from Georgetown County, about 35 miles south, Drexel's trail went cold for 7 years after dozens of fruitless investigations. The FBI joined the search, offered $25,000 for information. The first real lead came in 2016 when an inmate at the McCormick Correctional Institute in South Carolina made a confession. Now, this is where it gets a little fishy, and this is where you can't rely on informant testimony when they're being promised something. And because this threw a wrench in the whole case. His name was Taquan Brown, and he claimed to have witnessed Drexel being gang raped at an abandoned stash house he frequented in McClinaville on April 27th. She had a black eye, he said. Like 8 to 12 guys were in there and they were having sex with her. He claimed he was bringing money to a man named Sean Taylor when he saw Drexel and claimed he then heard her killed. As I see it, the guy in the front yard told me, hold on a second, he had to go inside. And after he goes inside, I hear 2 gunshots. At this time, I'm trying to get the hell out of there because I'm thinking someone has been shot. He added that Drexel's body was likely left in an alligator pit. So this was the story that they're literally going with. Like, this is their first lead in 10 years. And they're hearing about a wild gang raping and then fed to alligators from an inmate. Now, the man with the goatee is Deshaun Taylor. And the other person is the informant. Now, investigators could partly corroborate the story of the abduction and homicide. What we've come to discover, though, the course of this investigation is that Britanee Drexel did leave Myrtle Beach area. Special agent in charge of FBI South Carolina, we believe she traveled to the area of McLennaville, and we believe she was killed after that. But beyond Brown's confession, investigators have little more evidence to make any arrests. Now, serving 25 years for unrelated manslaughter, Brown's description of the stash house was also corroborated by investigators. It was 50 miles south of Myrtle Beach and near where Drexel's phone gave off its last ping. Brown said Taylor's 16-year-old son, Timothy Deshaun, was also present that day. Investigators believe Deshaun likely lured her to McLennaville to be trafficked, but the disappearance garnered too much media attention to keep her alive. Convicted of robbery in 2011, he failed a polygraph when asked about Drexel in 2018, but has never been charged with anything. While authorities brought federal charges against him in hopes of spurring a confession, it never came. Deshaun allegedly put a $15,000 bounty on Brown's head for cooperating with the police. In June 2019, Deshaun was sentenced to 319 days of time served for the robbery, and he was out. And as of then, Britanee Drexel's disappearance was considered a homicide, and the FBI was still offering a reward for any information leading to the arrest. Now, when I say this guy's life got turned upside down, and we have to put it in perspective, a young girl lost her life, but they basically had a jailhouse snitch just say that this guy was involved in the murder. Deshaun, and I'll pull up I'll pull up what he went through. And around this time, there's other missing young girls around too. So I mean, there's a lot. All right, let's see here. I'm gonna pull up the his witness statement. Now, I don't know if this family, after the latest developments, is going to do anything about, suing or anything like that. I think they would just let everything lie because, they're just learning. It's just recently in the last couple months that, a lot of the breaks came. But let me show you this FBI information. Hope you guys are enjoying yourself so far. I know these cases are tough to hear sometimes, and Spooky Sundays won't all be true crimes, but I wanted to start the season off with this.
All right, Don is here now with an update on that Chi-Li teen Britanee Drexel, who disappeared in Myrtle Beach almost 10 years ago. We spoke moments ago with a South Carolina reporter who broke this story today.
Yeah, Jenny, as we have learned earlier, reporter Doug Pardue obtained transcripts.
Like these people literally are on the news still where I live.
We've provided those new details in Brittanee's disappearance and murder. A jailhouse confession from an inmate who says he witnessed what happened to Britanee after she was kidnapped and then held against her will.
They showed this girl to several friends, and then the friends decided to trick her out to other people to basically have sex with her. And then the publicity started getting heavy, and according to the testimony, they got worried about the publicity and killed her.
As we heard, the inmate says Brittanee's body was dumped in an alligator-infested swamp, leaving little hope of ever finding her remains or any trace. The reporter there, Doug, saying they are optimistic now with this jailhouse confession. A father and son have been named in this as part of those who were part of this. They think now they're going to step up the efforts to really lean on this father and son, perhaps to get the son testify against his father or vice versa. But there is some encouragement now that this case could move forward.
So this is 2016. Claims from an inmate that she was kidnapped, raped, shot, and thrown in an alligator pit. The inmate claims he was there when Drexel was killed, and that Sean Taylor and his then teenage son were responsible. Taylor obviously denied all of these allegations and denied even knowing anything but what's been on the news. Like, all he knew was, yeah, I've seen Britanee Drexel on the news. I've never met her. I don't know her. FBI informant story about Timothy Taylor's Drexel ties just wasn't true. So they spent a lot of resources. They dragged this guy's name through the mud. They basically labeled him a murderer who raped somebody and fed her to alligators. And at the end of the day, they just said, oh, well, we made a little mistake on that one.
For 6 years, Timothy Taylor had a shadow hanging over him. His name synonymous with Britanee Drexel. He was named by the FBI as a person of interest, but now we found out the story was completely made up. What does this mean for Taylor and his legal team?
It has not been proven that my son did anything with this young lady. We just really appreciate it if you all would not associate him with Britanee Drexel.
That's Timothy Deshaun Taylor's mom back in July of 2021. For years, her son had been a suspect in the disappearance of Britanee Drexel. Not anymore. The FBI cleared him. Solicitor Jimmy Richardson told ABC News 4 the jail informant who named Taylor recanted his story, but we don't know when.
The FBI didn't make that up, all right? That was information that was put out there. And it was coming from prisoners who have later said that just wasn't true. The prisoners would say, I told a story. That is, but it did send the FBI off on that tangent.
He defends FBI agents in their pursuit of information in this case over the past 13 years.
If they hadn't continued to dig and do what they did, I don't know that we get to where we were Saturday.
Yeah, so he basically can't just say we took the advice of one inmate, didn't really vet it too hard, and, drag this guy's name through the mud for years. Richard's revelation about Taylor's innocence in the Drexel case comes a day after Georgetown County Sheriff charged another man with crimes related to the New York team's April 2009 disappearance. And trust me, we're going to spend some time on him. Now, the FBI informant did actually speak to one of the local news affiliates. So I'll pull that up as well. I'll also pull up a timeline of exactly what happened. And a short video to show you guys. But there's a lot of information. FBI informant speaks with NBC News, and this is what he was telling. This is the story he was giving to people.
10 years since Britanee Drexel of Chi-Li disappeared while vacationing in Myrtle Beach. These are the last images of her taken by surveillance cameras as she left the Blue Water Hotel on April 25th, 2009. 2 years ago, the FBI said it was certain she had been abducted and later killed, but no arrests have been made.
Tonight, exclusively on News 10 NBC, you will hear directly from the jailhouse FBI informant who claims he witnessed the murder of Britanee Drexel. His name is Taquan Brown, and he is in prison in South Carolina serving 25 years for an unrelated manslaughter conviction. But before he was locked up, he says he saw Drexel 4 separate times at 2 different locations over the course of a month in 2009. This is McCormick Correctional Institution. It's the maximum security prison Taquan Brown currently calls home. South Carolina doesn't allow face-to-face interviews with inmates. Why don't you tell me what you witnessed? However, over the course of 5 recent phone calls, Brown allowed me to record our conversations for broadcast, and he provided what he claims is his first-hand account.
I witnessed 2 different event.
Brown says he first saw Britanee Drexel at this abandoned house in McClellanville, South Carolina in April 2009, 2 days after Drexel had disappeared while on spring break in nearby Myrtle Beach.
On this Monday, April 27th, I saw the girl.
In the stash house?
Yeah, it was about 12 guys in there.
Brown says Drexel had a black eye and was being sexually assaulted. Did you recognize her right away?
No, I didn't even know who she was. I didn't know who she was until actually like a few weeks later when everything started coming on the news.
Over the phone, Brown described the stash house to me, and it was consistent with the house I saw when I went to McClellanville to investigate in 2016. He says he returned to that house a few days after the first visit.
We was in the front yard, and the girl ran, she ran out the back door, and 4 other guys ran behind her, and they chopped her and brought her back inside.
Brown says he then heard gunshots and assumed Drexel had been killed.
As I'm getting in my car, I see 2 gentlemen come out the house with a rug, and they put it on back of his truck, and I left.
But Brown says 5 days later, he went to visit his cousin Herman at his house in rural Jacksonboro, South Carolina, to show him a car he had just bought. The home is on a sparsely populated dirt road about 80 miles away from McClellanville.
So he was singing this song to anybody that would want to listen, and this is obviously to lessen the sentence. Now, someone asked, do they get paid for this information? Legally, no. Under the table, anything can happen. Usually the deal is what they say to you, from my investigation, is we will put in a consideration for you, meaning you might get some time off of your sentence if the information pans out. There's a well-known con artist named Matthew Cox, COX, Matthew Cox. If you guys ever look him up and check out his interview, he explains this, that he did so many cons and was so good at it that they wanted him to do Datelines and all these other shows, and they would tell him every time, we'll consider lessening your sentence, we'll put in a word with the judge to consider it. And in his case, the judge just told him, yeah, we did consider it, and the answer is no. You get no time, you get no time off. So it's a case-by-case basis. I'm sure if this story would have been true, and they could have led to actually finding the murderer, and if this guy had anything to do with it, I'm sure he would have got time off. but he lied, and they deal with this every day. You're going to have an inmate lying about this kind of stuff. It's just what they do. Now, just to give a quick overview of the case, I'm going to play a short video, and then we'll get into fast forwarding a few years from 2016.
The Grand Strand in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, a popular and
Fast forwarding a few years from 2016 of how they landed on a new suspect.
relatively safe place for families and spring breakers. Then one night, everything changed when 17-year-old Britanee Drexel walked out of this hotel, never to be seen or heard from again.
Yes, that's Chris Hansen. But it's just a very short, kind of compacted video of what happened in the beginning days.
I felt in my heart that, you know,
her mom is one of the nicest people you could ever meet. I've been to 2 memorials of Britanee's. She never quit. She was out there every day. Like when people say I was out there every day, she was out there every day doing something, trying to move this case forward, going back and forth from Rochester to South Carolina, rerouting her life to move to South Carolina for a while. Just a really good soul.
made this decision that may have cost her her life.
What happened to you, baby? Where did you go?
Now, 7 years later, the FBI may have found the answer to that question.
There's people that know exactly what happened.
But what one jailhouse snitch is telling the feds is beyond unthinkable.
They dispose of the body in what they call a pet.
Just the look in her eyes, I can just picture it. And it just plays over and over in my mind every day.
Yeah, just for making up a story like that, I mean, it's truly disgusting.
And I told her I love her too, and that was the last time I talked to her.
Then tomorrow came, and Dawn would learn the truth in the worst way imaginable. Getting a call from Britanee's boyfriend, John Greco, who had stayed behind in Rochester.
He's like, she's in Myrtle Beach and they can't find her. I said, what do you mean they can't find her? And my heart just sank. I thought that she was here the whole time. And I felt in my heart that she had made this decision that may have cost her her life.
What do you call that?
A mother's intuition.
John told Dawn that Britanee had suddenly stopped returning his texts and that none of her friends in Myrtle Beach had seen her since the previous night.
We kept calling her and calling her.
I started calling her cell phone myself, getting no answers.
And that's when I was like, we gotta go down there. I have to leave. I have to go down there and try to find her.
And she did this several times. Now, in the same interview, he actually speaks. One, you have the informant, but he speaks to Deshaun Taylor.
An unrelated case told investigators he personally witnessed what happened to Britanee, saying she was kidnapped, gang raped, pistol whipped, and shot dead by several men led by Deshaun Taylor of McClellanville, the area, you will recall, where Britanee's cell phone last pinged.
I know Britanee must have been so scared. Just the look in her eyes, I can just picture it.
And what Britanee's abductors are said to have done with her body after killing her is gruesome beyond belief.
Investigators believe her body was dumped in a swampy area like this, teeming with alligators.
I just can't get it out of my mind what they did to her.
But Taylor denied in this interview with Crime Watch Daily that he had anything to do with Britanee's disappearance.
I want to give you the opportunity to defend yourself. Have you ever met Britanee Drexel?
No, sir.
He says the same of Taquan Brown, the inmate who accuses him of killing her.
I don't even know the guy.
Is it possible he knew your father or your brother?
Yes, sir.
It so happens that just a year after Britanee vanished, Taylor's father, Sean, was actually arrested for allegedly trying to abduct this other young woman in the same location Britanee vanished.
I imagine they would have hurt me. They could have been rape, and I don't think they would have ever found me.
But the charges were dismissed because he had an alibi, and his son also claims to have an alibi the day Britanee disappeared.
Who can vouch for your whereabouts? A lot of my friends and family.
The FBI has charged Deshaun Taylor in an unrelated armed robbery, and his attorney says he has an incentive to tell all he knows about Brittanee's case.
Deshaun has the ability to get himself out of 10 to life if he could provide information, and he just doesn't have any information to provide.
Special Agent Mike Connolly concedes there is not enough evidence to charge Taylor in Brittanee's disappearance.
And as we know, the FBI cleared him of any wrongdoing and actually even knowing her at all. And the family spoke out for years and years and years. But let's get into some actual details of who did kill her. Now, this guy's name is Raymond Mooney. Now, the night of the abduction, he used this grooming technique where he saw her the day before, maybe 2 days before. He encountered her once or twice and would use a ruse of, hey, this is a dangerous area, hey, be careful, as a like a protector type. They're assuming the night of the abduction that he followed her to this hotel. When she came out, he pulled this ruse again and said, hey, you're going the wrong way. How about you get in the car and I can give you a ride? And as soon as she gets in the car, her life is basically over. And the parents had to go through all of this stuff about her being trafficked. And at the end of the day, it's not about how she died, because any way that is explained of how she died, whether it was an alligator pit or this absolutely disgusting, brutal guy named Raymond Mooney, they just want the closure. So, let's see when this was written. Okay. There might be a break in the South Carolina disappearance of Britanee Drexel. She was last seen in 2009 in Myrtle Beach, where she had gone on spring break without her parents' knowledge. On May 13th, that's of this year, the Georgetown County Sheriff's Office, South Carolina, revealed that it was holding a press conference on Monday in regards to recent law enforcement activity within Georgetown County. Now, they didn't give any further details. The Democrat and Chronicle, which is a local newspaper, not to me, but of the area, also shared that the activity might be related to the Britanee Drexel case, although it was not confirmed. They had reported that human remains were found in a wooded area near Georgetown, South Carolina, but were not yet identified. Now, this all came about because of the arrest of a convicted sex offender. And obviously this is from her page, Justice for Brit. According to the DNC, the news conference comes on the heels of the arrest of a man named Raymond Mooney, who was once considered a person of interest in the 2009 disappearance. And you guys won't even believe this story, but the day after she was abducted, Raymond Mooney was pulled over about 30 miles from where she was abducted. So obviously they didn't have all the information, they didn't have the ties, but exactly when she stopped texting her boyfriend is when she got into his car or van, and where her phone last pinged is where the body ended up being found. According to the paper, he is a sex offender and searches of the property are believed to be connected with his arrest. The newspaper reported that Moody was stopped by police for a traffic violation in a beach town near Myrtle Beach 1 day after the teen disappeared. He had spent 21 years behind bars before this for a 1983 abduction and rape of a 9-year-old in California. Now, information I have is that he had about 6 cases of rape, all minors. EBT, honestly, this makes you want to chip your kids. Well, I mean, I think some kind of necklace or bracelet for certain situations, if that's the parent's decision. I want to go with a chip. I think that's a little invasive. But you can't go by the phone because that's going to be discarded. But if you could have it in a ring or something like that, that isn't going to be immediately noticed, I think that would be a good idea for a certain age of teenager. I mean, you reach a certain age, there's an independence to, surveillance factor there. And it's obviously a parent's decision. So, video captured the last moments of Britanee Drexel before she disappeared. And it was just her hanging out. This compilation video shows surveillance video that captured the teenager walking out of the Blue Water Hotel where she was staying on April 25th. She was leaving the hotel to go back to another hotel where she was staying. Police had said previously that Britanee went to the Blue Water Hotel to see a friend who was staying there with other people. According to WSSC, she stayed 10 minutes and then left. Those friends were never considered suspects. So this is the group that she was going with, and this is why the mother was hesitant on letting her go, because she would have been the youngest of the crowd. These are just pictures from Myrtle Beach. This is the last known surveillance photo, and this is obviously the last one where she's walking out, and it couldn't have been longer than 5 minutes before the van pulled up and abducted her. An FBI agent says an inmate described what happened. We obviously know that was a fake confession. I mean, they actually came out and were doing crazy shit, like saying that she was being held against her will for days with no evidence whatsoever at all. And again, this uprooted this guy's life.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Joey Crosby with the Myrtle Beach Police Department. First, I'd like to begin by thanking the Drexel family for being here today. I'd also like to thank our partners in this investigation, many of which are standing here behind me today. And I'd also like to thank you, the media, for being here today, present to cover this matter. On Wednesday, April the 24th, 2009, Britanee Drexel left Rochester, New York with friends to travel to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for spring break. The next day,
That's their sound, not mine. And I don't know why their press conferences always aren't like fucked up. They have 20 million mics. You think they could get the speakers right?
Britanee disappeared. We know that Britanee made it to the Blue Water Resort. The last time that we saw her was on a surveillance camera leaving the resort. On April the 25th, 2009, that image was captured, and since then, Britanee has been missing.
This is when they went down the rabbit hole of an inmate's confession. Britanee was from New York and was a high school student at the time of her disappearance. Now, what really happened with Britanee? And who is Raymond Moody? Well, there was a lead that came into the case that really helped break it wide open. Why does it seem like they're covering up for someone? I think because they pulled him over the day after the actual murderer and rapist saw his record. There was a lot of things bungled by them. I don't think they were protecting him. I think they were protecting themselves for a botched investigation. But how a promising lead led to Drexel's remains, murder suspect 13 years after disappearance. There are so many questions to be answered after a 13-year-old murder case has made its way to the surface once again. On Monday, it was announced by several officials that an arrest had been made after locating the remains of 17-year-old Britanee Drexel, who went missing in 2009. Authorities said Raymond Moody buried a deceased Drexel. His charges include rape, murder, and kidnapping, and he is in custody, and still currently. The newest information released Tuesday morning states that Moody confessed to the murder of Drexel, and it was he who led investigators to her body after being held on an obstruction of justice charge confirmed by the county sheriff's office. In an interview with the 15th Circuit Solicitor Jimmy Richardson shed even more light on the case.
On this.
That's a
Great.
long.
Thank you so much, Solicitor, for talking to us today. We've had an incredible turn of events. Talk to me a little bit about what your office is preparing for now with Raymond Moody.
So, generally speaking, at this point, we would, the defense attorney would ask for a bond hearing, and there would be certain appearances, but Mr. Moody has waived all of those initial appearances and arraignments, or information about the charge, and bond hearings. So what would generally take place now is a series of those hearings, and that's not going to go.
No, he went on to say in the last maybe 2 to 3 weeks, we put that into motion, that being stuff that I really can't talk about, but we put that all into motion. Unfortunately, it was the right call, and it had some other stuff to bring up, and that ultimately led us to where Britanee was buried. He's talking about whoever tipped him off. They're not going to disclose that, but they got a very credible lead, not a jailhouse inmate just spouting bullshit. We were really against a race against the clock to find. We knew where she was at, and we needed to find her and make sure that we were looking at and confirm the theory that we had. Richardson explained her body was needed to move anything in the investigation forward, which is why he claims officials moved quietly. Investigators deliberately kept things quiet as long as possible, and some lack of information was meant to be confusing to the public. So that answers a question in the chat, that they just want to confuse the public because of the information they had. They couldn't risk critical details getting out before they had the body. Moody had to be placed in jail quickly on obstruction of justice. They pulled him over in a traffic stop. to prevent losing any chance they had to finding Drexel's body. And also because they felt he was too dangerous to be on the streets, and his rap sheet proves that. But the main thing was getting to the body. I mean, that was the main thing about this case.
First at 6, we have now learned how investigators found Britanee Drexel's remains 13 years after she disappeared. Today, the Georgetown County Sheriff's Office is confirming that Raymond Moody confessed to her murder and then led investigators to the area. The remains were found in a wooded area on Old Town Avenue. That's near the Harmony Township subdivision. The remains confirmed to be Drexel's.
Now, they don't mention it, but he also owned several properties in this area, and this was in a wooded area on one of those properties.
Through dental records. In an exclusive interview with our investigative correspondent Ann Emerson, 15th Circuit Solicitor Jimmy Richardson says there is new video from the Myrtle Beach Strip that shows Britanee's progression down Ocean Boulevard. There's also video of the vehicle that Moody was in. Prosecutors will now have to connect those dots. Richardson says he does not believe that Drexel was kidnapped from Myrtle Beach.
I don't believe from all the evidence that is there that a kidnapping occurred in Myrtle Beach. What may start off as a consensual ride at one point may turn non-consensual and into a kidnapping at another point.
And this was the grooming aspect I told you guys about, that he played this ruse of the guy that would protect you and tell you you were in a bad part of town and he could help you. So he either could have kidnapped her. There's surveillance footage that's just not released. Or he could have said, let me give you a ride, you're going the wrong way. And then obviously, as soon as she got in the car, it was just horrific. Just horrific. But who is he? Who is this guy? He's the man charged this week with the rape, kidnapping, murder of Britanee Drexel. Moody confessed to prosecutors that he killed the 17-year-old spring breaker, but his criminal history spans from Low Country to California. In 2008, he was charged with indecent exposure in the city of Georgetown. That was reduced to a public disorderly conduct in court. In 2010, he was charged with a first offense for failing to register as a sex offender in the county. The National Sex Offender Registry states Moody was charged in California in 1983. That's when he raped a 9-year-old girl. He was sentenced to California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation on December 15th, 1983, to serve 40 years for sodomy of a child under 14 while inflicting great bodily injury, rape with force and threat of violence, lewd or lascivious acts with a child under the age of 14, and assault with the intent to commit mayhem. But he got released early for parole supervision in 2004 and discharged from parole and even supervision in 2007. Our investigative correspondent spoke with Moody's cell husband. Ernie Merchant says Moody moved back to his hometown of Georgetown following his release. And then the jailhouse wife of this guy actually moved in with him in 2005. Along the same time, there was another woman that went missing. They're still trying to tie that to him. In 2012, Moody was named as a person of interest in another case alongside with Drexel's. Moody and Merchant ended their relationship in 2008, 1 year before Drexel disappeared. Merchant said Moody was having an affair with a woman and returned to a life of partying. And he has many cases under his belt. But the 40-year sentence and being let out early is just disgusting. Just disgusting. And he's not winking. His eyes just all fucked up. Just such a young, innocent girl. The background check indicated the date of the alleged obstruction of justice. That day, 17-year-old Britanee Drexel went missing while vacationing in Myrtle Beach. No other details were provided by the background check. Information from the National Sex Offender Registry revealed that Moody, 62, had been serving a sentence for rape and kidnapping of children under 14. And like I said, there was about 6 cases that he had. Just a serial rapist. And I'm sure he's killed before that, but they just can't tie it to him. He also went on to never register. Moody's arrest came days before Drexel's remains were found in his home. They keep saying wooded area, but it was a wooded area right near his home. Obviously, he's being charged with rape, murder, and kidnapping. And they lightly touch on the guy that was falsely accused. Following the discovery of Britanee remains, her mom, Dawn, said the search for Britanee is now a pursuit for justice. Britanee, originally from New York, was last seen leaving the Blue Water Resort. Her phone last gave off a signal on April 26, 2009. That signal is literally right where he was pulled over the next day. So, I mean, they have a pretty good timeline, and they're going to get this guy. Moody claimed he wasn't in the area when the teen went missing, yet in 2012, investigators discovered he was issued a traffic ticket nearby. So, caught lying. So, happy to say that Ray Mooney is finally off the streets. Finally can't do any more harm to these young children. It's absolutely gross. It's absolutely disgusting. And just the crazy twist of the cops pulling him over the day after the abduction, and they believe she was dead already. Britanee Drexel's murder suspect was a longtime person of interest and was pulled over by cops the day after the teen vanished. I mean, man, that is just one of the craziest coincidences you could find. Not much on him. If you look him up on Wikipedia and stuff like that. Crime Weekly did a very good job on this case as well. I highly recommend them as a true crime show. They did a 3-part series. It was like 3 hours worth of information.
These are amongst the final images of Britanee Drexel, who, in 2009, suddenly vanished while on a short holiday with friends.
And I just want to play a little bit of Deshaun Taylor again.
Part 1. To add to this, both friends and family gave him matching alibis on the day of Britanee's disappearance.
I may as well start with the obvious question. Did you kill Britanee Drexel?
No, sir. I did not kill Britanee Drexel.
Were you involved in the kidnapping of Britanee Drexel?
No, sir, I was not.
Were you with Britanee Drexel the night she disappeared in April of 2009?
No, sir. I was not with her.
Had you ever met her, or what did you know about her?
I never met her personally or physically. The only thing I've known is from what I've been seeing on TV and the bulletins and what the FBI think that I've.
And that would have been after the fact.
Yes, after April of 2009.
So it turns out that this lead was all one big red herring. A red herring that distracted police and valuable time and resource. back in prison. It had now been 10 long years of no happened to her. That's 10 years of